Welcome to Running for Real, a global community with a shared love and curiosity for running. Together we reconnect with the reasons why we love to run and discover ways it helps us become better people. Whether it's the quiet moments of a morning run while the rest of the world still sleeps, or befriending the strangers next to you at the start line of a race, we are here to connect with others who see running as the common thread that weaves our lives together. Come join me, Tina Muir, as I talk with people from all walks of life, united by a love of running. Hello, my friends. Welcome to episode 385 of the Running for Real podcast. Thank you for joining me. I'm excited that you are here and excited to welcome Vergil Chames to the podcast today. Vergil is one of the co-race directors, co-founders of the Selma to Montgomery Relay race, which is a bike and running race. You're going to hear a lot about that today. He's a retired Army officer. He is, of course, a runner. And this episode today is going to tell you about this important event that, yes, was made because of that protest, the march that was historically and importantly happened in 1965. And was a catalyst for all kinds of other events. But we're also going to go a bit deeper into the importance of why we have events like this and why we need to have these conversations about what happened in those places because of what those cities, those towns, where those historic moments have to deal with after the repercussions, I suppose, of being the representative of those protests, of those marches. So without any further ado, I want to get to this episode with Vergil. Let's go talk to him. I genuinely believe that the future of racing is going to be carrying our own fuel. Of course, not for every single person, but I do believe the majority of us can be carrying our fuel easily, can be refilling with refill stations along the course. I have a dream of making that possible, as does our brand new partner, HydroPack. Now, HydroPack has the highest quality, durable items out there. So much so that many of the other brands use HydroPack to make their products for them because they trust this brand. So I'm very excited to be working alongside HydroPack this year because they are not only invested in cupless racing or making us carry our own fuel, but they have got the chops to back it up with the work that they have done on creating products that really work. You know the days with handhelds where you had to actually kind of clench your hand the entire time you were holding it to make sure that you could hold on to the bottle? Those days are gone. HydroPack has done a lot of work to make it really easy, so your hand not only doesn't have to clench, but it just can be loose and it will stay with you. Their Sky Flask has this strap that is easy, it is easy to drink, easy to squeeze, and my favorite part, easy to refill with a flip lid where you can fill it up in just a few seconds. They really have thought of these innovations. I have all kinds of HydroPack products. I've been using them for months and loving them. Now I'm excited that I will be working alongside HydroPack at the Boston Run Show. If you are going to be there, be sure to come say hi. We'll have copies of the book, and I'm excited that we will be giving away cups so you could get yourself a speed cup to use in your future races. We'll be talking about cupless racing and I'll have books to sign. So if you're going to be at the Boston Run Show, come check it out. But if not, go check out the line of items that HydroPack has to offer, not just for running. If you are someone who likes to hike, likes to have long periods of time out in nature, they will have items for you. You can go to HYDRAPAK, that's hydropack.com/pages/Tina, and you'll be able to check out my favorite items there. Thank you so much to HydroPack for your support and for helping me in this message of cupless and carrying our own fuel racing. Vergil, I am so excited to welcome you to the Running for Real podcast. Thank you so much for joining me today.
It's a pleasure being here.
Yeah, this is great. You and I just recently connected and we are already doing this. So I love that we are jumping straight in here, going to be learning about one another as we go here. And the main reason that we are connected is because of you being do you use the word co-race director or one of race directors? What is the term you would use for that? When there's
race
multiple
director,
people?
it's fine. It's one
race director.
Yeah, race director is fine.
of the Selma to Montgomery Relay, which is going to happen this year on March 16th, 2024. And I had been talking to our mutual friends at Vacation Races about this event. And I just thought it was something obviously very meaningful. Most listeners will recognize that this is, yes, related to the events that happened in 1965. And we are going to talk about, how this was kind of a catalyst for other events around the civil rights movement that happened during that time. But first, I want to start by getting to know you a little bit better. So tell us within yourself, how has your relationship with running as a sport changed throughout your life, I suppose?
Okay. So running wasn't intentional for me. I enlisted in the Army at 17. So my early running years were a part of my job. And as I've grayed, it's been a part of a healthier lifestyle. So it's the evolution of me as a person being forced to, and now liking it enough to encourage my daughter to run a little bit. And that's really how my running journey has started.
So your daughter, does she run on a track or cross-country team, or you just mean kind of getting her to do anything?
She's a soccer player, and so she runs with me to keep in shape, but yes.
That's a fun bonding activity as well.
Yes.
If it's something that helps both of you and has been a vehicle for something important to both of you in that sense. So you said you were in the Army, you're a retired Army officer, 26 years, I should add there. So thank you for your service. Running then was a job for you. And you said now it's something that you use to keep you healthy. Did it take some time for you to figure out that relationship with something that previously was kind of a means to an end, essentially, and now, I mean, I guess it still is in a way, but now you had a different kind of meaning to it? Did that take some time, or do you feel like you slotted into that pretty easily?
No, I think it took some time, and then there were some significant events that happened in my life personally. My father passed in his 50s from a heart attack. He had a heart attack. And then my mother passed from a heart attack. And then all four of my grandparents passed from heart attacks. So it didn't take me long to realize that maybe I'm predisposed to, having some heart-related issues. So I better, try to do a little bit of doing right, being a little more active, eating a little better to kind of increase, the length of my life. So, thus far, knock on wood, I've lived longer than my father did, but I'm trying daily. And so, I think my catalyst for running and keeping busy was looking at, what happened with all of my family members, really, my grandparents and my parents.
Mm-hmm. And once you started to run for yourself, what did you notice about just the mindset you had around it, having done running for all those years as part of your work, essentially, and now being out there kind of for yourself?
Yeah, well, it makes you feel good. Every time you get through running, you feel good out there running. Because I'm a small business owner, I run to think about stuff. So in the morning, I run to think about what's going to happen in my day. In the evening, I think about what happened. What did I do wrong? And so it's my happy place. I think I'll call it my happy place, getting out there by myself and kind of talking to myself. Might look funny, but sometimes I may be screaming at myself. But yes, that's my happy.
Okay. So you mostly run alone then?
Yes.
Okay. And then what else from, your background, your past, do you feel kind of led you to this moment 8 years ago for bringing the Selma to Montgomery Relay together? Are there any other, moments in your life that feel significant to mention here?
Okay, so I'm a part of a running club Walk, Jog, Run Club. WJR Club is a group of friends. We've been running together for years. And about 9 years ago, we wanted to do something a little more significant to us. You know, most of us had run some of the larger races and a lot of the smaller races, but we noticed they weren't, you know, some of the causes behind some of the races weren't really significant to us. And we thought that maybe we could be intentional in putting together something that we would like to participate in, as opposed to something, you know, trivial like a jingle bell or a hot chocolate or something. Not that those anything's wrong with that, but how could we be a little more deliberate in what we put together? And so about 9 years ago, there was a Bloody Sunday commemoration that we saw on TV. And we were like, you know, it would be kind of cool to run across the Edmund Pettus Bridge, which is a really short distance. But we drove to Selma and we looked at the bridge and we said, well, that's not really long enough. But we thought about, well, what if we were to duplicate the Selma to Montgomery March? And so that really started this Selma to Montgomery movement. Also, it started our business, which is called the Civil Rights Race Series, which goes across the country and puts on races that commemorate historically significant civil rights events.
This was the first one that you
8 years,
came up with?
So 9 years ago, we had the idea. Our first iteration of this was 8 years ago. And so when we put on that event, we didn't know that it was going to be a yearly event, but we put on the event and we thought it was going to be a local event. But ironically, we had about 20 states represented, about 400 people that first year. And we were like, wait a minute, what have we come up with? And so our end of the race surveys, folk were like, you know, this really felt good. You know, I didn't know that I would feel this way when completing this. Some of them were in tears, you know, at the finish line to stand and see where Dr. King made his speech. How long, not long, you know, and to walk and run down that Highway 80 where those folk were walking, you know, was different. And our participants said it was different. And so when we got back and kind of dusted off and looked through, you know, our race materials and our survey, we found that, you know, we needed to do this. We need to do this again. You know, this isn't a one and done. We need to do this again. And so when we did the registration for the second year, a lot of the first year participants were there. So you're going to come back and put yourself through this 51 miles, you know, because we had some ultra marathoners and then some teams, and a lot of them came back. And so we decided we need to put some structure around this. And so what could this be called? Because we can't call it Selma to Montgomery and we go to other cities. And so let's call it something civil rights related. And so that's how the name Civil Rights Race Series was developed. There are 5 founders of the organization. There are 5 of us. 3 are certified race directors and run coaches. And so we take on the heavy lift of putting this thing together yearly with volunteers, of course, because this is a 12-hour course with 51 miles. It was initially 54. Being historically correct, we started at Brown's Chapel, which was the church that a lot of the movement meetings occurred. But after the second year, because Brown's Chapel is in the middle of a residential area, and some of the residents there didn't like the noise and all of the people that were there, and they made a lot of commotion. And so we had to make a correction to the race in order to keep the peace in Selma, and we moved it, just in front of the Edmund Pettus Bridge. So our route was reduced from 54 to 51 miles. But nevertheless, people started coming, And after that first year, we had some cyclists that had expressed interest in participating as well. So we have a cycling and a relay component to this race as well.
Which is quite unique. I can't think of many other races that have the opportunity to do either, and also means that runners who are struggling with some kind of injury or reason that they can't be able to run the whole way or part of the way can find a different way to participate in this, which is just another important thing to consider when you're asking people to travel a distance like 51 miles, even if it is split up. So can you share with us some of the other, you said about the series, where are the other races, just for people around the country who might be listening, and there may be one close to them as well?
Okay, so as I said, we're constantly adding new locations. And so we've been to Memphis, we've been to Birmingham, we're looking now at Topeka, Kansas, Little Rock, Arkansas. But for this next year, it's only Selma. Okay. We had Selma in Memphis, but now it's just Selma. And we've partnered with some other organizations as we're looking at other routes. Our Vacation Races partners are assisting us with some other locations, basically because when we go into certain areas, we want to ensure the safety and security of our athletes as they go. Sure. Some of the areas that we've gone to have not been as forgiving. And so sometimes with the theme of our race, we have some less than favorable conditions. And so we have to ensure that our athletes are safe and that we can complete whatever it is. It could be a half, it could be a full, it could be a relay. We just have to ensure the safety and security in some of these locations that still have some really different relationships in some of those areas.
Okay. All right. Thank you for sharing that. Okay. So going back to Selma to Montgomery, your relay this year, as I said, March 16th for anyone. Oh, well, firstly, with that, are there spaces for people to sign up now if they're listening to this and thinking, I want to be a part of that?
Yes. There's still spaces. We still have registration going until the end of February. So any of your listeners that are interested, go to Selma to MontgomeryRelay.com for registration. Also, if anyone is interested in volunteering or any vendors that are interested in coming in, we're accepting more athletes, more vendors, more volunteers. All of that can be found at Selma to MontgomeryRelay.com.
Taking care of your health isn't always easy, but it should at least be simple. That's why for the last 5 years, I've been drinking AG1 every day. No exceptions, 1 scoop mixed in water once a day, every day, and it makes me feel good. I feel energized. I can take on the day knowing no matter what happens, no matter what my food intake looks like, I have taken care of myself. That's because each serving of AG1 delivers my daily dose of vitamins, minerals, pre- and probiotics, and more. It's a powerfully healthy habit that's also powerfully simple. I know with AG1, I'm getting this high quality nutrition. Every batch goes through this rigorous testing process, so you know it's safe. Their ingredients are sourced for absorption, potency, and nutrient density. If there's one product I had to recommend to elevate your health, it's AG1. And that's why I've partnered with them for so long. So if you want to take ownership of your health, start with AG1. Try AG1 and get a free 1-year supply of vitamin D3 and K2 and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase exclusively at drinkag1.com/Tina. That's drinkag1.com/Tina. Check it out. All right, so let's dig into the relay a little bit more. So you said relay, you've already mentioned that people can do it as an ultra, as a 51-mile race, can do it as a relay with a team of 2 to 9 people. Share about the route that they take. how close is this to the route that was taken by the original people doing the march back in 1965?
Okay, so this is the exact route that the marchers took back in 1965. Our start line is at the Edmund Pettus Bridge. This is the location of the Bloody Sunday incident. So what happens at the start of our race, we'll have a DJ, we'll have stretching, but we have an opportunity for our athletes to come and take pictures, to actually bask in the historical significance of this location, of this event. So we'll get out there a couple of hours before and set up so that they can come in and really think about, this is that location. These folks, our forefathers thought, we can make it, because of some of the conditions of the country, not just the South, but of the country. We can be a catalyst for change. And so our athletes come in and they start at the Edmund Pettus Bridge and they take off. Because this is a rural route, some of the locations have been unchanged over the last 60 years. So you'll see the historical markers that mark each of the areas that they slept over, that they stopped, all the way to the state capitol. So our participants are going through a history lesson, actually taken back in time to that cold morning when those marchers started, not knowing if they were going to make it to Montgomery safely, because 2 times before they were met with force. And some of them were bloodied, they were beaten, they were thrown, and, all kind of bad things happened to them. And before that, people were killed. And so our athletes come in of all shapes and colors, coming in, and they feel it, and you could see it. And, you can see them getting emotional, because some will talk about, my family moved from this area because of, we were scared and my grandfather had to leave because of. And so it's really therapeutic, but it's really beautiful for us, those that weren't born during this time, to come back to an area and able to see what our folks went through, but also for us as race directors, as storytellers, to tell, this is what happened. This area was thriving at a time, and this area was punished for its participation, because what happened after this march, a lot of industry went out to punish the people of the area. And so once we go through 3 counties, you can tell those counties that really participated, because of a lot of the economics of the area were taken out as punishment. So we tell the story of, in spite of all of the good things that happened because of the 1965 actions, after 1965, a lot of bad things happened. And so as business owners, we can come in, and as individual athletes, we can come in and help the kids, the children of these giants, build these areas back up. One of the things that we didn't talk about, the Civil Rights Race Series has 3 tenets. Of course, we espouse fitness because we're cyclists and runners. Of course, we talk about history. We tell the story of what happened in each of these areas. But the third component that many don't know, we espouse economic development. So each of our services that we procure comes from vendors that are in those impoverished areas. So we try to give back to those communities, to build those communities up. We try to select service organizations, social service organizations in those areas to give back. So if it's a food bank, if it's a church, whatever a mission, whatever those entities are that can support that, those communities, we try to give back to them with a portion of our race proceeds, because we feel that if we don't, as sons and daughters of, these giants, who will? And so, in this Selma, as we go down, many of the rest stops, many of the exchange points are service organizations or churches that were historically significant at that time, that provided respite for, the marchers back then. So we provide economic support to them now. And so our race proceeds just don't go to our pockets, but go back into the communities to support them. And that's what we do from a national perspective. We select national organizations, we select local organizations, and we give to them because that's part of our DNA to give back. And so when our athletes come in and they say, what can we do? These are some entities that we can give back to, because it's not just about running past them, but it's about giving to them and feeding into them because they provided, these liberties that we take for granted now.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
So we
took on risk themselves. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. And that's actually like a very critical point that I think is good for our listeners to hear on a general sense of things. A lot of races now, but particularly the larger ones, are only now starting to consider the impact of the communities that they are traveling through, beyond obviously this one having so much significance to it. But if we are traversing through somewhere, and if a race goes through somewhere, we need to consider how it is affecting those communities that it's going through and what they are getting out of this from using their area as part of a race course. Obviously, this is a bit of a different situation, but I do think in general, that is a critical piece. And as you mentioned, allows the money to stay in the area rather than getting diverted away to some other community, which you don't know this because we've just met. But a lot of the work I do outside of this podcast is to do with sustainability in races. And that is also another piece of environmental justice, is working with local businesses, using local vendors, using local services, keeping that money in the area rather than bringing in these big corporations or big outside groups to put on things that could be done locally. So I appreciate you sharing that.
And even with our national partners, one of the things that we are really intentional when we talk to them is, we want you to support not just us, but these communities. Because these communities are at risk. They, for the most part, wherever you go nationally, from D.C. to the Carolinas to Florida, any of these areas that really touch the civil rights movement, were spanked. Things happen in those areas that, pulled those areas down, and it displaced a lot of folk because, the industry that was there is gone. We're going to get you because you did this. And so this happened. This was a systemic thing that happened. And so when we talk to a national sponsor, when you talk diversity, equity, and inclusion, this is a sweet spot for us because through us, you can touch folks that really need the assistance. We're going to be good. All of us are middle-aged folk. We've lived our lives. We're comfortable. But if we can be a catalyst for those communities that we touch in these next few years, we're doing a great, deed. If we can illuminate, as you said, to other race directors, you need to touch the communities, not just, give a T-shirt, give some water, give a Polish sausage or whatever you're doing. But let's be really intentional in our programming of how we touch these communities, how we give back to these communities, how we support these local vendors. Because if I have 3,000 athletes out and they have to have all of the amenities, why can't I find a local vendor, to take care of them as opposed to a national guy that has all of the resources? 3,000 people at a race is huge for a local mom and pop. That's huge for them to provide whatever that service is. Sure. And so we really want to, as we talk with other race directors, this is how we're doing it. We hope to be a model for other races. Even though we're relatively small, hopefully one day we'll be a Boston or a New York or whatever. But if we can be really, impactful with our size, then we'll be happy. When we finish and hang up our running shoes, we'll be really happy that we've been able to impact the race world with our thought.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for sharing that. And encourage listeners, if this topic is kind of a new area for you to think about, go back to the episode with Jackie Hoffman, where we talk about another example of this in Chicago. I don't know if you've heard of this, is the 13.1, which they maybe 3 years old, the Chicago 13.1, and they do it in Garfield Park in Chicago, which Jackie talked about, has an extremely the life expectancy there is dramatically lower than other parts of Chicago, and they not only have the race go through Garfield Park, but are really working hand in hand with the community there to build the race from the ground up with them, rather than, hey, we're building this race. What do you think, by the way? Which is an important difference. So I'll put that in the show notes for listeners to go back and check out, because Jackie also, talked about a very similar thing with his group, Peace Runners. So continuing on with, you mentioned about the rest stops. You mentioned that there's multiple points to educate people about what really happened, what happened, what the people that protested and marched went through. And it took them 3 days, right, to cover that 51 miles?
Yes.
Okay, yeah. So, while this is a 12-hour cutoff, you can break it down into a relay. 3 days is a long time to be out there. Obviously, big repercussions, big potential risks that they were taking. Anything else you want to mention about about that journey to that moment, and just bringing home why it is so meaningful, why you said people feel it when they are out there?
Because again, this is a rural route. So once we leave out of Selma in Dallas County, we really go on to 2 lanes of public highway, and it's really austere. And you're able to see those signs, those pieces of history. There are markers where folks were lynched along that route. They're pieces that make you think, because of my skin color, these things happened. And so that's why I say it's so emotional for our athletes to go through that, because they can read, they can see, our guides tell them about the things. They get to the state capitol and they're able to see and hear and smell and all of this. And we kind of immerse them into it. We have some of our elected officials to come out and welcome them, but also talk about the significance of the Selma to Montgomery March, but also our event and what we're trying to do, and them welcoming our athletes from across the country, and even a few international athletes that come in yearly for our event. The impact, the economic impact it has, but the social impact that it has. We have universities that bring their students down because they want, this as a service project, but they also want this as a learning opportunity for them to actually come and immerse themselves in civil rights history. Because this is, the largest classroom that they'll ever experience. 12-hour course, 51 miles. It's a huge course. It's a lot for us logistically to take care of.
Yeah.
But it's more important to tell the story, to be as historically relevant as possible. And, getting to the end and actually standing there at the steps, because our ending point is at the steps of the state capitol, where Governor George Wallace kind of blocked everything from happening, but also the dichotomy of that, Dr. Martin Luther King speaking on those same steps, and the dichotomy of Montgomery being the first, the location of the first White House of the Confederacy, but also the birthplace of civil rights. So you have the dichotomy of both things happening in an area that's really small and condensed. So you can walk from one block to one block and see, some Confederate memorial stuff, and then another block seeing some civil rights stuff. And so our folks get immersed in that. Again, as I said, at our vendor fair, we have those museum representatives that talk and tell that story, much better than we do, because they live that life. But we kind of steer them. Okay, this is the type of information we'd love for you to give to our athletes. But then we also have some health-related vendors there to tell that story of why stuff like this is important. Because again,
Yes.
we're in the Black Belt, we're in the Deep South, and, there's a large proportion of African Americans here and disproportionately affected by, heart disease. And so we want to tell the story. This is important to you because of this. There are a bunch of healthy folks running around here, but you don't have to run as far to be healthy. You can walk, and so this is that story. It's a story about civil rights, but it's a story about healthy living and making healthy choices.
I could talk to you about the Tracksmith Brighton base long sleeve all day, every day. You know this. I love it. I've got the same ones I got in 2019. I still wear today. I love that they keep me warm on my core until I warm up a bit, and then they let the warm out while all the time being tighter on my arms to keep my arms warm throughout those winter months. I wear them during the day. I wear them on my runs. They can handle like 3 or 4 days of me wearing them during the day, and then 2 to 3 runs on top. Love it. That is my favorite thing about Tracksmith. But today I want to talk to you about some tights, some pants, because it is that time of year and many of you have been asking me which ones do I like. I have tried most of the Tracksmith tights. My favorite, though, are the session tights. They're streamlined full length for year-round performance, but I really love the way that they fit. As we know, running tights are an essential part of our wardrobe, and they made a tight in this way with the session tights that can handle everyday training regardless of the weather, but especially in these winter months. They fit well, they last long, they're durable, they are comfortable, they come in all kinds of cute colors. And I strongly encourage you to head over to tracksmith.com/Tina to go get yourself one of those Brighton bases. The long sleeves, and also my favorite are the session tights for those of you who have been asking. I have this like maroony color, or I think they call it berry, in those session tights, and I absolutely love them. They're my favorite ones to put on. That said, I want to mention with Tracksmith, my favorite thing about the brand. I've mentioned I've been wearing the same item since 2019. That is the key here. If we want to reduce our carbon footprint, our individual emissions, the biggest thing we need to do is buy durable, long-lasting items that last and can handle lots of wears before washing. That is what Tracksmith shines at. Go to tracksmith.com/Tina to find out more. For sure. And again, with my environmental background, I want to also add that it's also, we talk about this, Zoe and I talk about this in our book, about the, the discrepancy between environmental dangers and just, toxic situations where people are living in. There's a higher proportion of Black and brown people living in those communities where health is harder to access anyway, because of just the environmental situation of where people are living. And I'm not versed in whether that's exactly where you are, but just in general.
No, you're spot on. You're spot on. So as we talk with our elected officials, our race is in a food desert. So, as we move from Dallas County to Montgomery County, a large component of our race is in a food desert. So they're not going to have fresh fruits and vegetables. They're going to have dollar stores and convenience stores, and that's what's feeding the community. And so if that's all you have, how can you espouse a healthy lifestyle? So, we're the mouthpiece for 3 counties, 3 communities, or any community that we go in to talk about, we need to, create healthy environments for our folk if we want longevity. It's not just civil rights. These are basic human rights that we're talking. This is our mission. Our generation's mission now is to espouse fitness, because it's easy to go and grab fast food. It's easy to grab, some processed stuff and throw it in the microwave. But what are the repercussions of you consuming that stuff? And so, events like ours, podcasts like yours that talk about these are issues that our communities are facing. And if our, small platforms can illuminate that these are issues and we need to work on this, Because as I said, we're intentional with our elected officials because they want to grab onto our shingle because we bring so many people in and we bring stuff in. But please, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Senator, look at where our race is occurring and look at probably disproportionately what's happening with them physically. What are the health conditions of this? Do we have heart conditions, heart issues? Do we have cancer? Do we have, all kinds of things that are associated with it? Because we're riding past a bunch of convenience stores, liquor stores, all that kind of stuff that's bad for the community, but they are everywhere. So why can't we have a neighborhood market? Why can't we have a farmer's market? Why can't we have some things that feed the community better than, more than taking away? Again, as I said, we've been really intentional. We don't want to come in and just take from each of these communities. We want to give back. And we want to be, at the end of our run, whatever this thing lasts, we want to say we've given back to these communities and we've built up to these communities and we've created great partnerships like you that help us to shine the spotlight on these things, because these are things that we're seeing from our vantage point, and these are national issues that have to be talked about. It's not just about, we need the right to vote. Of course, we need to, continue having the right to vote, but we need the right to live. We need the rights to have, fresh food. We want our kids and our grandkids and our great-grandkids to live in an environment, that's free from all these toxic things that are just everywhere.
Yes. Yes. And never mind even the air quality, the water, that also is an additional to that. I do want to give a shout out here as my friend Dwayne, who puts on the Ferguson Twilight series. I live in St. Louis, and Ferguson is being revived. The city is putting a lot of money into helping Ferguson and the community to continue to build. And we do now have farmers markets in Ferguson, and we do, at least my family puts a lot of effort into going to Ferguson events when they have them on. But in addition to that, Dwayne puts on an amazing events with the Ferguson Twilight series. And so I just want to give a shout out to him. If someone is in this area, that's another opportunity to do, something that is meaningful to another community that is still hurting. Bringing it back to you, you also mentioned to me before that you bring in people who participated in the march. And I want to, before you go to say that, just put a little marker by that point, because many of the people who participated in that march are still here. It wasn't that long ago that this march happened. We're talking 49 years. So tell us about, bringing in some of those people and their role in Race Day.
Yes. So we look for some of these senior folk now that are still living. Like you said, it wasn't that long ago. These people are still living. They have a story to tell. And we bring them in to tell their story. One of our great friends is a young lady, by the name of Cheyenne Kreisberg. At that time, Cheyenne Webb was a child, and they made a movie off of her life called Selma, Lord Selma. But she was the youngest participant in the March Across the Bridge. And so Cheyenne tells the story of her coming from her housing project and going there and having to run and, being in that church, sneaking into the church and hearing Dr. King speak, and then going out there and holding hands and going across that bridge, and the fear, because she had been there a couple of iterations before. She saw Bloody Sunday and saw these folks getting pummeled. And so she tells the story. But then there are other folks, the Boynton family will bring, any of these folks because they're still there and they want to tell their story. We need to, be that conduit so that, these giants, because they're leaving us, it's not like they're really young, but they're leaving us. So we want to tell the story. We want to expose our athletes, of all flavors to, these giants and the stories that they have to tell, because it's a consistent story. They wanted justice. It started off with voting rights in Dallas County. And it started off with someone getting killed. And then they started from there. And then all of these national organizations, Southern Poverty Law, the SNCC, all of these groups started coming in to try to assist Dallas County, little Dallas County. But it all started with, we just want it to be fair. And President Johnson, signed some bills and all of that. But at the core of this, those folks from Dallas County, and so we bring them in. We've also brought in some folk that participated on the Montgomery side, because you have, two sides of this thing. The Selma side, which kind of started it off, and then the Montgomery side, because Montgomery had some things of its own. And so we'll bring these people in to speak. And, again, it's a history lesson. We try for it to be a history lesson, able to speak to these giants that were back there, to actually say, I stood next to Dr. King and see a picture of them standing next to Dr. King. We always think that this is a giant. We can't touch this person. This person was just here a few years ago.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. So for many people, this, will already have the significance, the interest is piqued. For someone listening who is thinking, I'm not sure this is the place for me, in terms of just like maybe, a white person listening who's thinking like, I feel like this is a situation where I should step out of the way. What would you say to that person in terms of, you just said the point of like, this is a history lesson. This is an opportunity for you and your family or your friends to learn. Would you say anything else to those people listening to encourage them to come along to, that this is not something that they should be, nervous to go to?
Oh, yeah, definitely. So from its inception, from our year one, we've always had a racially diverse group of athletes to come in, because if you look at the Selma to Montgomery March, it was racially diverse. So it wasn't about all African Americans. It was about all people that come together for a common cause. And so the Selma to Montgomery 51-mile relay and bike ride is just that. It's a melting pot of all people. And it's not just about, the history. We have fun. We have fun. There's some fun things that happen. We put our spin on the beginning and the end of the race. So it turns into a huge party at the beginning, and it turns into a huge party at the end. And our packet pickup and our meet and greet turns into a huge party, but it's for all people. We have, our friends at Vacation Races that come, every year with us. We have teams, corporate teams from FedEx, from across the country that come in. So, we welcome everyone. Our commonalities, are we love running. We're family. So if we can run together in Boston, we can run together at Selma. It's going to be the same experience. It's a welcoming environment because we're all runners. We're all cyclists. And again, the historical significance of the initial event, which was the Selma to Montgomery March, it was all people. If you look at the pictures, it was all people. And so we want to be welcoming to everyone. It's not just, and you won't be alone. Everyone is welcome. Everyone will find something that they enjoy in this. They'll see some things and say, oh, this is this. Our corporate partners bring in people every year. This is this. I enjoy this. I feel comfortable. As far as safety and security, we have, law enforcement from 3 counties, police and sheriff, and we have the state troopers, because we have to secure 51 miles of real estate. And so we have a huge law enforcement presence, as well as health, some nurses and doctors, so that we can ensure the safety and security of our athletes from start to finish.
Great. Thank you. So people can go to selmatomontgomeryrelay.com. Anything else you would like to share before we wrap up today?
No, I sincerely thank you for giving me the opportunity to talk about our event.
Yes.
If anyone is interested, please go to SelmaMontgomeryRelay.com. We welcome you again. We need volunteers. We need athletes. We need vendors. We look forward to you. And we look forward to you next year as well. There's a historical significance in 25, 60 years. And so we look forward to, everyone coming this year, but also next year, because we have some things planned for next year to commemorate that huge milestone. But again, thank you. It's always fun talking about our baby and what it's growing into being. And we look forward to seeing all of you on the road.
Thank you. Well, I really enjoyed our conversation, and you definitely, I'm kind of envious that I won't be there this year now. But hopefully I'll be there next year to join you, and everyone who does go, I can't wait to hear the stories afterwards. So thank you so much for sharing.
All right. Thank you.
Before we go any further, I just want to give a quick shout out to the Running for Real team. Without them, I would not be able to do barely anything compared to what I'm able to do today. They are behind the scenes. They are there for me. I am just so appreciative of them. To Jeremy Nessel, our podcast editor, audio consultant, and someone who's been with me since the start. To Sally Pontarelli, our content and operations manager, who is there day to day doing all the things to help me be successful. To Kelsey Wang, our head of design, and Louise Murphy, our associate designer. And finally, to Sandy Gutierrez, our photographer and content strategist. I am appreciative of all of you and wouldn't be able to do what I do without you. I so appreciate Vergil sharing what he did with us today about the race and beyond, and the importance of these kind of events for the historical significance they hold to those places. So you can find links to check out the Selma to Montgomery Relay race in the show notes. You can also find links to our sponsors, HydroPack, AG1 and Tracksmith by going to runningforreal.com/episode 385. Be sure to go take the advantage of those discounts and go sign yourself up for Selma to Montgomery if you have not already. And I hope you will be joining me there in 2025. I intend to be back there for that event next year. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed this week's episode. I will see you next week.